Hello and welcome to the Word for Today. And boy, are we glad to see you. As always, our hope and prayer is that everything is well with you and your family and that everything is okay at your home. Thank you. Thank you for coming online with us. We are getting ready to go through, continue our series through the book of Genesis. And we welcome you. It would be a good time to invite a family member, a friend, or somebody to come over and check us out. We are excited. I am to continue this study as we're going to be making one of those big pivotal movements in this book of Genesis, which we've been through several. And each of these uh, books or Toledots or section starts us off with the generation of Adam, the generations of Noah. We've seen the generation. Matter of fact, we've been through 9 generations, and now we're getting ready to enter into one of the final listing of the generations as we're going to look at Jacob's and his descendants, Jacob and his sons. In our last episode, we looked at the generations of Esau and a bunch of names that really from antiquity that came back and kind of we had some linkage there with the book of Job. And I think that was hopeful that was enlightening for you. And we're going to pick up a story of much intrigue. This is the family that will be the family where the promise that God has given to Abraham and Isaac really gets to come to fruition. And as we talked about earlier, the promises that were given to Abraham wasn't hard to figure that out. Abraham had a son by the name of Ishmael, but he wasn't the son of the promise. Only son that he had the promise was Isaac. Isaac has 2 sons, and Esau and Jacob. Esau was the promised one. He sold the birthright. He got tricked out of the blessing. God favored Jacob. But Jacob, on the other hand, doesn't have 1 or 2 sons. He has 12. And we've already seen the disqualification of 3 of those sons, Simeon and Levi, what they did at Shechem when they murdered all of these men. And then Reuben, who was the oldest son, when Rachel dies, he goes in and sleeps with Bilhah, Rachel's maid, to kind of like preserve a place for his mother, which really, really was a no-no in that culture. So now we're going to try. Now we got 9 sons left, and we're going to narrow it down to see where does the promise go from here. Okay, so welcome aboard. We're going to get started by putting on the screen the book of Genesis, stories from the beginning. Feel free to put your comments in the comment field, and from time to time, we'll put them on the screen, and they'll look something like that. All right, let me ease up a little bit in here. Okay, let me put this. Okay, so let me do it like this. This is episode 215. If you're following along, welcome back to the Word for Today. Thank you for joining us on Facebook and YouTube. We have other Bible studies. We have one on Monday night. We have one on Thursday night, in addition to Wednesday at noon. So wherever you find us, thank you for joining. Now, here's our opening question. These questions are like you play softball. We kind of toss them underhanded, make them easy for you to feel comfortable engaging with us. We're not here to be the judgment zone. We're here to just have a conversation. Okay. When, if ever, did you receive a bad report in school? Did you ever get a bad report in school? What did you get it for? And who gave it to you? If you want to share with us. If you ever got a bad, quote, bad report in school, what for, by whom? Okay. I must admit, I have received some bad reports in school. A lot of times they were from my teachers. Teachers back when I was growing up, they were basically well-meaning, committed to their occupation, trying to educate kids. And really, to get a bad report, you had to be bad. You had to be not really participating. So, yeah, I've got one a time or two, not really for discipline, but not for applying myself. I didn't apply myself as well as I could or should have. What about you? Have you ever received a bad report in school? And if you did, if you don't mind telling us, what was it for and who gave the report? If you ever received a bad report in school, look like nobody else on here ever got one but me. But I'll let you sit with that a minute. Uh, okay. So Ken Carter says, when I did not receive one. Okay. So that's a little cryptic. We're going to try to, if you could give us a little more clarity behind that, appreciate it. Okay. When, if ever, did you receive a bad report in school? What for and by whom? Okay. That's our kickoff question. All right. All right. So, as you sit with that question, we're going to be opening up some other things to get it deeper into this text. I'm going to go into another question. All right. Let me do this. All right. Let me go into this other question. So I get some feedback. Okay, here we go. What is your most recurring dream? Do you have a dream? Okay. Oh, I see. What your grades were in the ditch. Okay, so it was not unusual then for you to get a bad report. Okay, I guess me and you were kind of like kindred spirits. Okay, okay, I follow you. Okay, uh, do you ever have a recurring dream? Do you have a recurring dream? I've had a recurring dream, but it doesn't occur anymore. But I used to have a recurring dream that I was in a car that was running out of control. I mean, like driving all over the place, and I couldn't control it. It was just going, doing whatever it wanted, going backwards, upside down. It was horrifying. It was harrowing. I just felt like I just couldn't. I was just behind the wheel, it appeared, but I wasn't driving. The car was driving me. It was driving me insane. Okay. I had that dream off and on for years, for many years. Okay. Um, I don't have enough time to tell y'all today what happened, but that was a dream that I have had quite often. Okay. Of a car, me in it, it was just driving itself. What about you? Okay. 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 Um, as King Carter says about, the first question we popped up on the screen was about have you had a what if ever when if ever did you receive a bad report in school? Said his grades were the ditch, but look at what God can do. And that is a great testimony. And that's kind of where we're going to be at in this text. There are some things that will go wrong in this family. This is a very highly dysfunctional family. And this ought to be a cautionary tale for anybody who believes that God only uses certain people, a certain pedigree, a certain economic, educational attainment. If you believe that, then you definitely need to read this story. Okay. So, anybody have a recurring dream? All right. And here's our last toss up question. What has been one of your more divisive and memorable experiences with tattling? Tattling, okay? Tattling. Anybody know what a tattletale is? Anybody ever heard the expression about tattling? Okay. Anybody ever have an experience with that? Okay. Okay. So we talk about tattling. It's something that people do. Okay. We talk about tattling, we really mean that when somebody reports on somebody else's wrongdoing. Okay. Uh, when you tell what somebody else has done wrong. In this culture today, they call them snitches, they call them rats. They have a lot of negative terms that they use for that. But even in the Old Testament, there's a young man whose life will be put in danger because he was viewed as a person who tattles or reports another person's wrongdoing. Now, we're going to look in this text that Joseph is a teller. Okay. Okay. So I had to run home from the neighborhood bully. Okay. Wow. What an experience, right? Okay. So, a lot of us have had experiences with that, with having to tell on people. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that Moses tells it and God doesn't give us a commentary. He doesn't say it's good. He doesn't say it's bad. He just simply says that what we may view as tattling, Jacob sends Joseph out to give him a report. So he wants his son to report on his brothers. Kind of strange for a family, right? That you got all these older brothers. Now, the older brothers, Jacob, we're going to find in the text that Joseph is somewhere around 16, 17 years old. His brothers, many of them are 10 years older than him. So they grown men. And he's sent out by his father to give a report on them. Okay? So as you can see from the get-go, that this is probably not going to end well. Okay? So let's do it. The story of Joseph, we're going to be in Genesis chapter 37. We're going to read verses 1 through 11. Okay? Genesis 37, verses 1 through 11. Okay, let's do this. Okay? So I'm going to make it bigger on your screen. And we're going to do it like this, okay? All right. Okay. Okay, did I do that? Okay. Let me do it like this. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And he brought their father a bad report about them. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made a richly ornamented robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to the dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Blessed is the word of God. Okay, now from these verses, we're going to raise a couple questions here, and let's go through it. From these verses, not anything else you know, but from these verses, how would you describe Joseph to someone who had never met him? Okay, somebody's never met Joseph, and you just read these 11 verses. How would you describe him to somebody who never met him? How would you describe Joseph to someone who had never met him based on what we just read, verses 1 to 11? Okay? How would you describe Joseph? Just based on what we just read. We're not reading the whole story. We're just reading this. Okay? What can we tell about him? Okay? Okay. What can we tell about Joseph? Well, he's precocious, right? Okay. He's boastful. Anybody else? Yeah, he's arrogant. He's spoiled. He has a very high opinion of himself. Okay. These are some things that we might be able just to discern simply by listening to his story in verses 1 to 11. Okay. He he's favored, meaning his father preferred him over his brothers. Now, it's something to be preferred, and it's something to know that you have that status. So you kind of know that no matter what you do, because you are preferred and favored by your dad, that he's going to look at you in a positive light and look at his brothers in a unfavorable light. So it might be some room in there for Joseph to exaggerate, to pile it on, because he knows that already dad has demonstrated that he loves him to a far greater degree than he loves the other brothers. And not only that, they know it. Okay? So just from what we know, This is not a healthy family to be a member of. Okay. There's just too much stuff going on in the household. Okay. So, all right, let's look at this. I want to pull this up for you real quick. So we got that going on. Okay. Now, gotta ask this question. I know it should be on its face simple, but I want you to think about this. And if you want to, you can post your answer on in the comment field. Okay, what fueled the brothers' hatred and resentment of Joseph? I mean, it's bad enough that we're told in the text that they had a problem, but what fueled it? All right, what fuels the hatred? Anybody? Okay, so let's just push through it then. Okay, uh, here, and this is kind of like um, parenting 101. Okay, when you have more than one child and you treat the one child much better than you do the other child, the, everybody figures it out. The mother knew, the brothers knew, everybody knew. Okay, and so this is really why we call for in families to try to keep some sort of balance. You don't go overboard over one child and then ignore the other child, because these resentments in childhood sometimes they stay on in adulthood, and we're going to find that is the case in this family. So what fuels the brothers hatred and resentment of Joseph is not just the knowledge that the father loved him. He was the youngest, and we know the story. His dad gets married, and on the wedding night, he finds out that he's not married to Rachel, but he's married to Leah. And Leah's dad comes up with this thing saying, in our country, the oldest daughter got to be married first. And he's already worked 7 years for her. He loved Rachel. Then he's allowed to marry Leah after that week celebration. And then all of a sudden, not Rachel, but Leah gets pregnant. Leah has 4 boys. All right. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. That's 4 boys. And Rachel's barren. So at that point, Rachel goes and tells her maid, Bilhah, to go sleep with Jacob and produce children. And she does. And she has 2 kids. When Leah sees this, she gives her maid Zilpah to Jacob and says, you go sleep with him. And she has 2 kids. Okay? So he's got 8 kids. Then God reopens the womb of Leah, and Leah has 2 additional boys. So they're 10. So he has 10 kids, and the one he loves has none. Okay? So finally, Rachel's womb is open, and she has a son. And his name is Joseph. He's the son of Jacob's old age. The older children, some of them are probably in their 20s. And finally, he has a son from the one he really loved. What does he do? He dotes on the boy. He has a coat made for him that's special. And some of you may have seen the movie Joseph's Technicolor, coat. This is a lot. Even Broadway has gone and made a big to do about his Technicolor dream coat. Okay, So whether the coat was multicolored or not, we don't know. We just know it was ornamental. It was a sign of something special. Okay. So every time the brothers saw the coat, they were reminded of the person wearing the coat that daddy thought he was the most important thing in the world. And it created a wedge in the family. Okay. So the way daddy acts, the way daddy treats Joseph, and then on top of that, as if Jacob has no inkling, he sends this boy out literally with the instructions, I want you to spy on your brothers. I want you to go check on what they're doing and come back and give me word. Okay. And that's his job. That's what he does. It goes out and he literally spies on his brothers, on his father's behalf. Okay. All right. And then because he's special, right? They sit around the table, and whenever Joseph speaks, daddy wants to hear what Joseph got to say. So he has a platform and he has a gift. Okay. So Joseph, what he does in the text, let's go back and look at it. Joseph gets his brothers together, the 10 older. Now he has a younger brother. His younger brother's name is Benjamin. And Benjamin and Joseph's mother die, giving birth to Benjamin. So his biological mother is dead. Yet when he talks about the dreams, he mentions the sun and the moon, symbols of his mother and father, but he's not talking about Rachel. He's talking about Leah. Okay. So why does he behave the way he does? He has a gift. Doesn't know how to handle it. He has a gift of dreams. He can interpret dreams. He has dreams. His dreams are given to him by God. But notice in the text, God gives him the dream, but he doesn't give him the maturity to handle the dream. So he has the dream, but he doesn't know how to handle the dream. Okay? So what do you think? Why do you think Joseph behaves the way he does? Well, he's a teenager and he's spoiled. Okay? And he has a special gift. So you put all those things together, special gift, teenager, spoiled, you're gonna get the worst of a person. So what Joseph does is he convenes these big meetings and he calls his brother together and he tells him, look, I had a dream. I had a dream that there were 11 sheaves or stalks, because remember, they are not only are they herders, but they plant. So they have crops. So they bring the crops in. And so he says, look, these are sheaves. Usually lay them down on the ground. They're like bundles. Joseph says, well, my sheaf stood up and all of your sheaves bowed down to me. And the brother's like, Joseph, you're not even making an attempt to disguise what you're talking about. They said, Joe, do you mean to tell me you're going to stand in front of our face and tell us that we're going to bow down to you? You little teenager, we grown men. Okay. We got, some of them had their own families, and you're going to tell us that we're going to bow down to our baby brother? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you can see the problem. Okay. So was Joseph right to tell his dream to his brothers? Well, the Bible doesn't tell us that. What we do know in retrospect, we do suggest or think that maybe he could have been a bit more tactful. Okay. Maybe he could have been a bit more careful, but he's neither of those. He's a young teenager who has a gift and who is highly favored. Okay. Now, the brothers respond, we can't believe you telling us this. That's the first dream. Then in verse 9 and 8, 9, after his brothers asked, "Do you intend to rule over us?" In verse 9, he said he had another dream. So these are dreams are really God's way of communicating with Joseph to kind of let Joseph know, Joseph, I'm still in charge. I am still the God who is going to look out for you, who's going to provide for you. But Joseph, he don't he just sees that he's going to be the number one, and everybody's going to bow down. That everybody else is like, no, sir, we're not going to do that. Not to you. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Okay, so in verse 9, verse 10. 9, he says, I had another dream. So this is the second dream. And this time the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down. Now, you got 11 brothers, right? And you're going to tell them that the 11 stars, you consider all of the stars, millions of stars, hundreds of stars, thousands of stars. But he specifically mentions in this dream that there is the sun and the moon and 11 stars. There is no way that anybody at the family table can misconstrue this and think that Joseph is talking about anything else other than his family. So he says, Mom and Dad and my 11 brothers are going to all bow down to me. Okay? So Dad kind of say, hold on a minute. Are you meaning to tell me that your mother and I and your brothers are going to come and bow down on the ground before you? This made his brothers more jealous. But notice what it says about Jacob. Okay. Jacob's response in verse 11 is classic. Let me see if I can pull it up for you. I want to show you something. Joseph, it says, his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Now, this is interesting to me because I think what it suggests to me is that you remember the story of Eli and Samuel, when Samuel keeps waking Eli up and says, he's because he's being disturbed, he's getting awakened from sleep. And Eli says, I didn't tell you, I didn't call for you, go back to sleep, go back to sleep. The third time, Eli's like, hold on, something's going on. The next time the voice comes to you, says, speak, Lord, because your servant hears. Eli figured it out, that God was speaking to Samuel. In the text here, we have Jacob, who is familiar with dreams, because he was a dreamer, is familiar with the way God speaks. And it says that what he did, instead of getting jealous and angry with the boy, he kept these things in the back of his head. He said, this could be really God's way of speaking to Joseph. He's just a bit immature. But Jacob is not willing to throw his son under the bus because he's saying, this could be God. So he just like notes it and tucks it away because he probably remembers, I remember having visions. I remember seeing a ladder going from earth to heaven. I remember wrestling with God. And maybe God is speaking to Joseph. Now, he can't understand how he and his wife, Leah, because Rachel is dead, are going to bow down with the 11 sons. But he doesn't criticize them. He's not say, shut up, boy, don't bring this stuff to the table. He keeps them in his mind. Okay. You see that there? Pretty interesting. Okay. Now, let's see. So Jacob feels this way because, as we said, Jacob has experienced God. And a lot of times when you've experienced God and somebody comes to you with a dream, a vision, or some recurring feeling, if you've had an encounter with God your own self, you may be aware. You may have enough, be clued in enough to tell a person, hold on, this may be God's way of speaking. And we have to recognize today that God still uses dreams and visions. Okay. Doesn't use them as often as he did in the Old Testament because now we have the Bible, but God still speaks. Okay. And the thing about dreams and visions, if God gives you a dream and a vision, one thing you do know is this, that it will never, ever contradict what he has spoken in his word. It will confirm, it won't contradict. Okay. So the big idea of this text is real simple. It's like 3 pieces, but let me give them to you. The story is well loved because this is drama. I mean, this is why Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat has sold so many tickets. So many people have seen it on Broadway, off Broadway, because it's a great, great story. Okay. The story of Joseph, where you had Disney animating Joseph. It's just a great story. I mean, yes, it's in the Bible, but it's a great story about how family works. The king of Egypt, Charlton Heston, different, it's a tremendous rags to riches story. Okay. And then it follows 7 important themes that hold our attention. Okay. But more than anything, all of the ups, all of the downs, all of the internal dysfunction in the family, through being put in prison, and we're going to see Joseph's story. It is horrific, but there's not a page that we turn that we do not see the sovereignty of God. That no matter how bad it looks, God is still sovereign. He is still in control. That's why this story is enduring. That's why people who don't know a lot of great stories in the Bible, they know the story of Joseph. Because this is just like, this is just as real as somebody, today, rising from obscurity to become the head of one of the biggest firms, running the country, running the nation. It happens. Okay. So 3 questions we want to look at real quick before we go. Okay. 3 questions we want to look at before we go. And here they are. We'll answer these questions as they relate to the passage. And we're only talking about Genesis chapter 37, verse 1 through 11. Now, there's a lot of meat on this bone. So we're going to have to go cut chapter 37 up into several pieces because, after this, he's going to be sold by his brothers. Then he's going to wind up that whole story about being sold to Egypt and then winding up in Potiphar's house. And then we're going to take a pause after that and look at chapter 38. But look, chapter 37 is just pregnant with a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. So let's look at this. 3 questions we want to ask. First question is, what does the passage say about God? What does it say to us about God? Okay. I'm going to give them to you. If you got something you can write down, good. But I'm not going to put them on the screen. I'm going to tell you out loud. First thing it tells us is that God knows the future. Okay. Don't you worry. Okay. God does indeed know what will happen in the future. God knew, and that's why he told Joseph in the beginning that his brothers would bow down and that Uh, and God communicates that to Joseph in his dream. And I think it's important as we look back at this story, right, that God tells Joseph this in the beginning because maybe, and I'm not sure, but maybe doing being incarcerated, being sold by your brothers into Egypt, maybe there's not a whole lot to hold on to. Maybe, you might get to the point where you're into your rope and you want to give up, but you remember that God gave you a dream that one day your brothers are going to bow down to you. It may not look like it now when you get locked up, when you get put in prison, when you get sold away from your family, when your daddy's been reported that you've been murdered. It doesn't look good. But God has told Joseph before it happened that, look, your brothers are going to bow down to you. So God knows the future. Second thing we know about God in the passage is this, that God can speak through dreams. Okay. Understand this. God already knows the future. And he spoke in dreams to Joseph to reveal to Joseph exactly what the future would be. His family is going to bow down. Okay. Now, I want to be honest with you. Not every dream you have is significant. Okay. But sometimes God will speak to people in dreams which do have what we call significant meaning. Okay. So we're not saying everything you dream is God speaking, but sometimes God will use your dream to give you some insight, to caution you, that, just, uh, you know, put something in your spirit that said, hey, I need to get closer. Okay. Now, next question. What does the passage say about God's plan? Okay. God's plan. Okay. Uh, this we already know from verses 1 through 11 that God had a plan to put Joseph in authority over his family. Okay. That God was going to put Joseph in authority over his father, over Leah, over his brothers. God was going to do that. Okay. Now, the only way that Joseph would be in authority over his family is that God was going to use him to save his family. So God was really predicting to Joseph that there's going to come a time where I'm going to make it where you're going to have to be the one to save your family. You're going to have to deliver them out of Israel, out of the land, and you got to bring them into Egypt to provide for their safety. Okay. And we're going to see that unfold as we go through the next 13 chapters in the book of Genesis. This is all God's plan. Okay. Now, we also know that it was God's plan that his family would bow down to him. Okay. The dream did come true. Okay. The family ultimately did bow down to him during the great famine. Okay. Now here's the strange thing about it. We're going to unpack it when we get there. That when the family bowed down to Joseph, they didn't know they were bowing down to him. Okay. They had no clue, but the actions did fulfill what his dream said. Okay. Now, what else strikes you about this passage? What else strikes you about this passage? Okay. Anything else hit you like, okay, wow, didn't think about that. Okay. Now, all right. Now, what strikes me about the passage is that this is a great reminder for all of us. No matter where you are in your life, no matter what's going on in your life, God is sovereign. He knows before it happens. Okay. He knows. Okay. All right. God is always on time. So you may be facing something in your life, and you may be wondering if God is going to stand up, if he's going to come to, is he going to come through? Is he going to do for you what he said he would do? Read this story again and be reminded that God will do what he said he will do. He will come through, okay? Because he promised you that he would. And this is what we have to hold up in the text, is that Joseph doesn't know this. And how could he? He's 17 years old. It's going to take him 20 years to get to where God's going to answer this prayer, answer this dream. It's going to take 20 years. And those years are not going to be filled with joy. They're not going to be filled with a bunch of fun. But in all of it, and if you go back and we're going to read through chapters, the rest of chapter 27 to chapter 50, but there's a theme that will continue to come up in those chapters. And it's this: and God was with Joseph. When Joseph got sold by his brothers, the Bible said, and God was with Joseph. When Joseph got put in prison, the Bible said, and God was with Joseph. When Joseph got forgotten in prison, the Bible said, and God was with Joseph. And I want to remind you, the same God who was with Joseph is the same God who will be with you. Whatever you're going through, no matter how bad it looks, no matter how dark it may seem, God will be with you. Okay, that's what struck me about this passage. And if I didn't get anything else out of it, I'm like, thank God that the reminder is that we can't always see the end. Sometimes God just gives you glimpse or a clip from the beginning of the movie, and you just got to live to see the rest of the movie come to fruition. But he reminded Joseph, your family's going to bow down. And Joseph had no way of understanding what that meant. But the only way they were going to bow down, because we have hindsight, is that meant that he was going to be the one to take care of them. Wow. Isn't that amazing? Okay. So fine. Here's another idea. How does the passage affect how you view God? Well, I've been telling you that I'm more determined to hang in there and believe that whatever God said, he's going to bring it to pass, because he has a record. Okay. He has a record. He has the resources. Okay. And because of his record, because of his resources, we know that he will come through. He's done it before. And if you don't, if you just want to take a moment and ask somebody, there's somebody in your life who can testify, he did it for me. And if he did it for them, he can do it for you. Okay. And the idea for each of us is that we need to run. We need to run on. Thank you, Ken Carter, for that. We need to be determined that we're not going to give up. We're not going to throw up our hands. We're not going to give up the fight, because God has already promised. What if Joseph had just said, hey, I had this dream. Now I'm in prison. Obviously, it was just, eating some bad collard greens, or it's just me and my wishful thinking. But God was with him. Took 20 years, at least 20 years later, for the dream, any of these dreams to come to fruition. But God brought them to pass. And some of you haven't even been waiting 20 years. How long are you willing to wait on God when God tells you something? Okay, so how does this passage affect how we view God? And how does it affect how we view ourselves? So I'm hoping as we get ready to delve and take the plunge deeper into chapter 37, that this will be an encouragement to you to stay in there, stay in the race, hold fast to whatever God has promised you, knowing that if God said it, he cannot lie. He will bring it to pass. Old folks said it like this: he may not come when you want him, but he's always on time. All right. All right. Now, we talked about just to let you, as we finish this up with this dream of Joseph. Joseph has two dreams from God to relate to his family. Okay. We looked at them, verse 5 to 11. Here's the issue: he knew how to interpret dreams, but he didn't know how to care for people. What he was saying was the truth. He just had no compassion about it. He had no empathy. He couldn't understand how somebody could feel hurt by what he said. So he had dreams that he could interpret, but he was just so, carefree, so callous. You gonna bow down to me, mommy gonna bow down, daddy gonna bow down. Matter of fact, everybody gonna bow down to me. And sometimes we got to be careful. God may trust us with something real awesome, real beautiful, but we got to know how to care for the people that he entrusts us to. Okay? Just because you got the favor of God, you don't need to go around and brag about it. You need to go around and project on everybody, hey, I'm special, you're not. Let people see you as special. You don't have to tell them. Let people see you as anointed, as God having his hand on you. You don't go around and brag about, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other. Okay? People will know if God's got his hands on you. They will know if you are the real child of God or not. We don't have to go around making the announcement. Okay? So where do you want to excel in caring for people? Because remember, that was Joseph's big downfall. He didn't care how these words are going to be taken. And I can't really blame him, because he's just a 17-year-old who's stuck on himself. That's usually what they do. Okay? But where do you need to be better in caring for people? What needs to change in your life so you don't just be a blowhard like Joseph? So you're not just self-centered and into yourself like Joseph. What needs to change in your life? And I hope you be honest. If you find out what that is, move on it. Try to change it. Try to make it better. Okay? So here's our last thought. What you think about this? Don't have an answer. Just wanted to throw it out. And what I want to throw out to you is that we're going to see the sovereignty of God throughout the rest of Genesis. Jacob has 12 sons. The question is, why does God choose one person for one thing and another for something else? Okay? Why Joseph? Now, here's another thing that you need to understand. While Joseph is the one who will be the protector of the family, he's not the one where the promised seed comes through. But that's for another day. Okay? Okay? We can't understand it, but sometimes we just need to understand that God moves in mysterious ways. Have I got a witness there? All right. All right. So let me see. That, my brothers and sisters, is the word for today. Okay, just want to give you a couple updates on things. One is on this Saturday, yes, we're having the men's fellowship. We're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to have a hybrid Bible study along with our men's breakfast. Now, to get in that, to join in there, let me make this bigger. You can scan the QR code, okay? And that will give you entry on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. Or you can put in the meeting ID, and passcode and also join us. So I'm going to leave this up on the screen so you can screenshot it. Just take your camera out and take a picture of it. If you can't do that, just scribble down the meeting ID number. Okay. That's like an 11-digit code and the passcode, which is a 6-digit code. Okay. And we really want you to be there. You're going to be blessed because we are doing maximized manhood. This is a men's ministry, the father of men's ministry in America, Edwin Lewis Cole. He wrote the book Maximize Manhood. So we're going to be looking at it. We also on Saturday will be giving you a link to the book so you can download it and you can follow along with us. Okay. All right. And so now we're going to ask as we get ready to go if you have any prayer requests. All right. I'm going to leave this up here just a few seconds longer. If you want to get that. Let me see if I can do it like this. Let me see. Okay. So I'll just leave it there for a couple of seconds. If you have a prayer request, just kindly drop them in the comment field. Okay. We see Juanita Gilder. We'll be praying for her. And we ask anybody else, you want to pray for somebody or you want to put their name up, we'd be glad to lift them up in prayer also. Okay. All right. So that's the QR code for Saturday. There's a meeting ID and a passcode. So if you don't have the QR code, you're going to need the meeting ID and passcode to actually get in. So that you would go to Zoom, and when you go to Zoom and join, they're going to ask you for a meeting ID and a passcode. That will get you in. Okay. All right. Look forward to having you with us on Saturday morning. Also, making strides against cancer. This is Sunday, October the 12th at 10 a.m. on 6th Street. 6th Street. It says 2. It should be number 2, 6th Street. And it's a Newport. It's the Riverwalk. You can scan the QR code if you want to make a donation to Making Strides, New for Hope. Okay. That'd be New Hope's designation. If you want to make a contribution, we thank you for that. We are not going to be able to have financial peace because we did not get enough people to register. So we will put that off for a future event. We're going to try to do a better job with advertising it, but we did not have the projected numbers of people to fill that. So we're going to do that. Okay. All right. So if you got any prayer requests, let us know. Also, Eden Elevated Date Night, the Love Collective is going to have that on October the 11th at 6. Doors open at 6:30. It's $25 a person. Please come. I look forward to having you. Game night, Friday, October 24th. That'll be the young adult ministry. They're doing that. And then November the 1st, 2 o'clock, we're going to be celebrating 20 years, the New Hope ETC story, 20 years of partnership and purpose. And we want to just say thank you to everybody that's helped make us a mover, shake in our communities. We've been trying to help as many people as we can. Okay. So let's get ready for prayer. All right. Lord, thank you for this time that you've given us to share together. Thank you, God, for allowing us to look at the beginning of the story of Joseph. And God, we thank you that you still speak to us through dreams and visions. And we pray, God, that we would be able to walk in humility, walk with a humble spirit as you speak to us. Help us not to be brazen. Help us not to be arrogant. Help us not to think that we are better simply because you speak to us. But thank you for being the God who does talk to us. And now, God, we ask that you would be with us right now. We thank you for those who are able to come on. We thank you for those who are able to take moments out of their job, at home, on the road, shopping, wherever they had to be. Thank you for letting them come and share in this word. Now, bless us today that we will be better for having been here. Bless those in the hospital, nursing homes, those in the intensive care. And Lord, we also thank you for those who you've been making exceptional ways, opening doors, making ways. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We just can't praise you enough. And we ask you to continue to bless us and keep us, is our prayer. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, my brothers and sisters, we want to again say thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Word for Today. Would you tune in, please, for tomorrow evening, 7:30? We have connections, and we look forward to having you join us for that study. But until then, we ask that God continue to watch over you and keep you. Therefore, my beloved brothers and sisters, be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know your labor is not in vain in the Lord. God bless you.